Good morning to all and respected chair and co-panelists. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Sahityaakademi for inviting me this event. Now, I am going to read my story. Story name is Crippledworld, translated from Telugu by N.S. Murthy and R.S. Krishnamurthy. Saying the dua and rubbed my face with cupped hands was my daily ritual when I got up in the morning. But today I could not feel my right hand. When I looked for it, I found it severed from my body and lying cold and lifeless in one corner of the bed. I could not make out how this had happened. There was not a trace of blood around. It was an cleanly sawn off from my person, as a neem branch sundered from the tree with a sharp saw. Oh no, my hand has been cut off, I shrieked in fright. My wife hurried into the bedroom. Oh my, was it because of this that you were making such a racket? I was frightened to death, thinking it was about something else. Good riddance. Keep it safely in the almara. We will go to the doctor, and we were able to find the time and get it reattached. Why are you so scared for every small silly thing? She left as quickly as she had arrived. Only then did I notice something about her appearance that made me even more scared than before. Her left hand was missing. She was a southpaw, whether to serve food, pick up a glass of water, scribbling something in a notebook, dust a room, or even beat our 7-year-old child Chandu. She would use only her left hand, and now that all important hand was missing. Forget about my severed hand. How and when had she lost hers? I wanted to call her back to ask her, but refrained from doing so. I knew she would snap at me again, and I would get no worthwhile explanation for her missing hand. So I said my prayers with the left hand, rubbed my face with it, and got up. I placed my severed right hand carefully next to my wife's left hand in the almara. Finishing my ablutions quickly with my left hand, I got dressed, ate my breakfast, and with the lunchbox dangling from the stump of my right arm, I hurried to where my scooter was parked. So I could head off to work. On the way, I saw the owner of the house that we were renting approaching me. To my surprise, both his hands were missing. I cursed myself. There is something terribly wrong with the world today. I wanted to ask the man about his two missing hands, but didn't know what to say if he asked about my missing right hand in turn. So I said nothing and simply gestured that I was going to the office and started the scooter. To my astonishment, I discovered that I was able to drive the scooter with a single hand. It was not because of any great skill on my part. It appeared that the scooter itself was designed to the driven single-handed. In fact, all the people on the road were driving single-handed. Some of them drove right-handed, others drove left-handed. That was the only difference. How did the world get crippled overnight? There was a famous hospital on the way to the office. People were lined up before it holding their amputated hands. I, ignoring a no parking sign, I parked my vehicle and asked by standards nearby what the queue was for. Their answer blew me away. Apparently, the people who were queuing up had lost their hands almost a year back. When they had applied to have them reattached, the waiting period was so long that it was only today that they had received the appointment they had sought for the requisite surgical procedure. My goodness, at the rate I would have to wait a year for my turn. What's the alternative? So many crippled people in this country. I was under the impression that this had begun only last night. If everyone was to wait a year for treatment, they might as well get used to living with just one hand. In fact, they would probably find it difficult to adapt to living with two hands once the missing hand was reattached. No, that should not happen to me. I thought I must apply to get an appointment to get my hand reattached as soon as possible. Leaving the scooter in the no parking zone, I hurried towards the application counter. The queue there was even longer than the pilgrims queue in the front of Tirupati temple. At least there it was rumored that the temple authorities were making arrangements for more areas to queue in, but here there seemed to be no such plan. I might I might take a week before my turn came. I saw that some people were attending to their personal hygiene while waiting in line. Others were besieged by hackers and other vendors who were harassing people to buy something. If they did not oblige, the aggressive hackers would swear at them. Sometimes they would even thrust goods in the hands of the unwilling buyers and forcibly try to take money out of their packets. If they continued to resist, they were being pulled out of the queue to be shouted at and humiliated in front of everyone else. I was only missing one hand. If we were to stand in this queue, I was not sure how many other limbs I would lose. I was already late to the office. I would require enormous stamina, packets full of cash, and a week's leave to fight one's way through this queue. I left for the office. The security guard greeted me with his lone hand. Greeting him in return, I took the lift and reached my office floor. Everybody was effortlessly working at their computers with one hand. Can I do it as expertly as they? I wondered. Keeping my lunchbox aside, I eased into my chair and switched on the computer. I wondered I did not feel any handicap working with just one hand. My left hand was able to negotiate the keyboard and mouse simultaneously. Everything seemed fine. The only thing I regretted was that nobody seemed to notice that I had lost a hand. That really hurt me. I said to the colleague next to me, till yesterday everyone of has had two hands. What happened to one of them all of a sudden? He laughed rather laconically. You are an inattentive fool. It's it is been a long time since all of us lost one of our hands. It was only because you continue to have two hands that two didn't notice that our hands were missing. He was right. That was the way of the world. Only when we miss something do we notice it in others. All these years, I had taken little notice of him because he was a colleague, and it was only when there was a crisis that he had caught my attention. What a startling insight he had presented to me. Even I was mulling this over. I felt proud that I had been able to hang on to both hands for so long. Suddenly remembering the leave I had to take to submit the application at the hospital, I entered the office of my boss. He was he was operating his computer with his feet. I did not notice when he had lost them both of his hands were missing. For a second, I felt it was not proper for me to ask for leave. But then, realizing I had no other choice, I said, Sir, I need leave for a week. I need to submit my application at the hospital to get my hand reattached. He looked at me as though I were an idiot. Then he said, if I had been able to find the time, I would have had my hands reattached long ago. I simply could not get away to submit my application. If every one of you goes on leave to get your hands reattached, I will have to shut down my business. Tell me, how is that bloody hand going to serve you. Get lost and get on with the work. That's what corporate culture is all about. Nobody cares about their fellows, nobody is considerate. All that matters is this work. Employees need to go about their routines as though there is nothing is wrong. Even their limbs fall off one after another. Because I lost my hand, I had begun notice that people were missing their hands. If I were to lose my head, perhaps I would see how many people around me were headless. I sank into my seat after that, dressing down from my boss. When I looked at my watch, it was already 1 o'clock. My stomach was growling. A crazy thought passed through my mind. If only hunger was also short a hand and a leg, then this need to appease. It would be reduced by half. I walked across to the canteen, found an empty table and settled down to eat my lunch. However, before I could open my lunchbox, Sarayu, my HR friend, came running over to me with a box of sweets, announcing good news, and without waiting for my response, she pushed a laddu into my mouth. I began munching on it while inquiring with a raised eyebrow what the good news was. Yesterday, my baby, my darling, the apple of my eye, forgive me wholeheartedly, she declared happily. Forgave you? Come on. How can you be so sure? She paid no attention to my cynical response. She deposited the box of sweets on a nearby table and hummed happily as she waved both her hands at me. I examined them keenly to see if they had been reattached. But no, they were perfectly natural, like the plums of a royal swan. They were a treat to watch. She excused herself to offer sweets to somebody else. Suddenly, it struck me why I had lost my hand the previous night. Unable to overcome my grief, I broke down and sobbed, Chandu, my darling, can you please forgive me for raising my hand against you? Thank you.